Hello, everyone. Mark Cartervox Academy here, and today we're getting funky. We're going back in time. Why? I don't know. We just are. Actually, no, there's a good reason for it. So we're going to check out Slipknot, Duality, and we're going to check it out on the suggestion of my business partner, Quigs, who you may have seen in our contest videos. And part of the reason we're going to talk about this, there's a lot, and I'm not going to go too into it in the intro, but part of the reason we're going to talk about this is, I really have not heard a lot of Slipknot. Now, let's pull the veil back. We all know when we see a thumbnail that's like vocal coach, here's Nickelback for the first time. It's like, well, unless vocal coach lived at the bottom of the Atlantic, that's a fucking lie. So I'm not saying I've never heard them, but I never was really into them, right? Sometimes they'd be playing on the background. I mean, I was in high school in 2004. So obviously Slipknot was huge at the time, but I was more of a Disturbed guy. I was more into System of a Down. You know what I'm saying? So I never really got into Slipknot very much. So active, like sitting down and purposefully putting Slipknot on, probably like less than 10 hours of my life, probably less than like 2 hours of my life, right? However, that being said, Slipknot is one of the most influential metal bands of modern times. And this is an interesting song because from what I've been told, if I'm wrong, blame it on Quigs. From what I've been told, this is a few years after his big injury, after touring for Iowa and the Iowa album and everything. And so this is the voice he sort of invented when he was in recovery. So I'm interested to hear about that because we talk a lot about good vocal technique, but we don't really talk about vocal injury and vocal damage on the channel. So hearing somebody come back from that is going to be fun to talk about. Now, what the heck does this chubby wish.com Zach Galifianakis know about vocal injury? Well, hello. My name is Mark. I am a metal vocalist myself. I'm in a band called Kardashev. We're on Metal Blade Records. Have been for a little while. You can check it out if you want. I'm also a metal vocal coach full-time. I teach people how to make cool vocal noises safely and efficiently so that they don't hurt themselves. So I know a little bit about it. I know a little bit about vocal injury. So let's go ahead without further ado, just to see who gets spicy. Without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's go back in time. I mean, even though I wasn't like spinning a lot of Slipknot in my Discman and my jean jacket on the bus ride home, you know, with the bus bouncing and then the disc skips all the time and the skip protection is just a joke anyway. Even though that wasn't me, I'm sure this is going to take me back, right? And this is going to make me think, hey, I got to put some Disturbed on. Just kidding. Whew, just kidding. Anyways, all right, jokes aside, Slipknot, Duality, here we go.
I push my fingers into my eyes. It's the only thing that slowly stops the ache. But it's made of all the things I have to take. Jesus never ends. It works its way inside. If the pain goes on.
Let's actually pause it right there and talk a little bit first and foremost. So I will say this. I mean, I'm only a little bit in, but I will say that having listened to a little bit more Slipknot these days, I do appreciate them more so. And I think they're actually pretty good. Back in the day, I wasn't listening to music critically. In fact, I was mostly just listening to music I thought was cool or that my friends liked because I wanted to be part of the group, right? I was like 16. But at the same time, one thing I think Corey Taylor does really, really well, and it's not just him, it's also the way that he interacts with the music, is Slipknot always had a very sinister sound, right? They had like their brand of nu metal was like crazy, like, you know, I'm going crazy. I can't take all these pills, man. You know, like that was kind of their vibe. And so the singing with that guitar riff and sort of like the soft muttering to himself with a little bit of vocal fry, like very, very good, a very, very good theatrics. And I think that regardless of how you feel about Corey Taylor, which by the way, I just want to clarify, even though I was never like into Slipknot, they're not bad. I don't think they're bad by any stretch of the imagination. They're really good. But the storytelling in his, like, nobody could ever say that Corey Taylor's doesn't give emotional performances. He gives some of the most emotional performances. And even there where he's just close to the chest, sort of muttering to himself, you can kind of see the image of him sitting in a corner. Very, very awesome. Now, one thing that I hear, again, this is just me listening to the song right now, is that one thing that I can hear that is a good thing is how the distortion is separate from tension, right? I talk about this a lot because this is one of the main ways that people damage their voice, right? And when I say damage their voice, that's an umbrella term for a lot of different things. Could be a muscle pull, could be a nodule on the vocal cord, could be a rupturing of the vocal cord or swelling, right? One of the biggest ways that people cause damage is strain. And strain is this really weird cycle where you squeeze the vocal cords, so then you have to push harder, which means you have to squeeze the vocal cords, which means you have to push harder, which means you have to squeeze. And you see how this kind of rolls into itself, right? But you can hear his voice is very large, very resonant, very open, and the distortion is coming from a higher space. So we don't have like, I don't know the lyrics or melodies, but we don't have like a hey, like we don't have that we often hear with like new vocalists or vocalists who come and go fairly quickly for obvious reasons. We have more of like a right? And you can hear that you can hear that the distortion and the distortion is free of glottal tension, right? Something to think about. Let's keep going though.
Screamed until my face collapsed. I've waited as my time's elapsed. Now all I do is live with so much fate. I've wished for this, I've bitched at that. I've left behind this little fact. You cannot kill what you did not create. I've gotta say what I've gotta say, and then I swear I'll go away, but I can't promise you'll enjoy the noise. I guess I'll save the best for last. My future seems like one big past. You're left with me cause you left me no choice. I push my fingers into my eyes. It's the only thing that slowly stops me. If the pain goes on, I'm not gonna make it.
That's a really good thing for us to talk about as well. So one thing that's really important for us to do is for us to sing and scream into the mask, right? Now, I talk about this a lot, but I'm going to go into a little bit of a deeper dive than normal. Man, look at these people. They are pissed. They are messing that house up. I guess the story behind this music video is that it's a bunch of fans just like busting up an abandoned house. And I think that's actually pretty awesome. Like, look at this guy. He is charging in. He don't care at all. I love it. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about why it's important, okay? So, have you ever noticed that the majority of the time that you hear somebody singing or screaming with lots of grit, you don't hear things that sound much like classical singing or opera, right? Now, of course, there's a lot of crossover in the fundamental breathing techniques, and I am going to oversimplify things a little bit here to kind of show my point. So, if you want a keyboard warrior, I mean, please do. But keep in mind, I'm building a little bit of a dichotomy here to show you what I mean. Oftentimes when we think about people screaming, it's a very bright sound. It's very forward. Hey, oh, yeah. I'm aiming my voice here. I'm leaving my vocal cords relaxed. And I'm making sure that I feel my voice in the front of my face, right? One of my favorite exercises to get my students to feel the voice in the front of their face is to pretend they're chewing something really loudly. And then if we're working on pitch, we go to the target pitch. And then we open up to A. Right? Anyways, part of the reason we like that forward resonance for what we're doing is because is for that to happen, generally speaking, the back of our mouth has to be really open. So the tongue will be up. Like if you go to Google, hopefully I remember to get this picture. If you go to Google and you type in like tongue vowel shapes, one of the things you'll see is a chart on Britannica.com. And that chart has like an E sound, which E is generally a very frontally resonant sound, depending on your accent and your, primary language and things like this. But when we say E, generally we get a lot of buzz in the front of the face, and we can feel that the back sides of our tongue, again, depending on your language and your accent and all this, the back of our tongue is up at the top of our back molars. This means that our tongue is outside of the pharyngeal space, right? It's not in the pharynx, it's up and out of it. And this creates a lot of room for things to distort. I mean, imagine doing jumping jacks in a big football field, in the middle of a football field, and then imagine doing jumping jacks in a closet. Like a small little broom closet, the janitor's closet at school. It's going to be a lot harder, right? And so oftentimes when we try to create a distortion with throaty tension, what we're doing is we're taking the person jumping jacking, doing jumping jack. Oh God, that sounds dirty. Leave it in, Ludo. The person doing jumping jacks in the middle of the football field, we're forcing them to do jumping jacks in the broom closet, so they don't have room to move. But if I'm here, hey, it's very easy for me to lean into distortion, especially if I already know how to do it, right? Hey, I'm not gonna make it. And it's quite comfortable. It's quite comfortable. You don't feel like you need to cough. You don't feel like you need to sputter. There's none of that, right? So definitely something to think about. You hear him singing Into the Mask. Oh my God, that's a pun. I didn't even know. I didn't think about that. Corey is singing Into His Mask. And that's part of how he's keeping the distortion really, really healthy. Let's keep going. I also want you to notice how he's not pushing really hard, right? One of the things that can cause a lot of damage in our voice is overprojection, right? And that's essentially just pushing too hard, usually paired with, again, tension, right? When you're listening to these notes, that he's singing, these pitches that he's singing, hey, right? With that, I certainly have a lot of volume. I'm taking up a lot of space in the room, but there's not a lot of press. You can hear that I'm not like putting my airflow behind my vocal cords and pushing through them like, I'm not Cosmo Kramering, if you know. I'm not Cosmo Kramering my vocal folds. Hey, right? I'm leaving the mouth open and I'm focusing on just enough effort from my abdominal muscles to make the sound happen, right? And a lot of that volume I'm getting is from the resonant space in my mouth, right? He even sounds like he's a little bit more pulled back. One of the ways that you can kind of get comfortable, I suggest doing this once you know how to create distortion, false, quarter, or fry. If you don't know how to create distortion at all, we do have an e-course on the CarterVoxAcademy.com website. A lot of people are working on it, and a lot of people are saying it's quite helpful. False chord fundamentals, that's one way to do distortion. But generally speaking, if you know how to do distortion, even if you're not very good at it, but you can do it comfortably, right? You can do like a very front of the face, like just like gruff voice. So let's start clean. Let's say like, hey man. Now what I'm going to do is before I engage anything else, I'm going to engage my lower abdominal muscles. Okay. And I'm going to think about this grit happening in the back of my mouth, even up at the top, like on my soft palate, right? The air moves up, the air goes through an open and relaxed airway, hits the top of this is what we visualize anyway. This is how we think about it. The air goes up between the vocal cords, which are very relaxed, hits the top of the soft palate, boom, and explodes into sparkly distortion. And what that doesn't cause is squeeze on my glottis. So I'm here, hey man. Now don't worry about sounding cool at this point. We don't care about that. We care about comfort and control, right? So if you're like, oh, but I don't like the way that sounds, tough luck, get over it. This is, you start with comfort and control and then you move into style, right? So, hey man, hey man, hey, what's going on? I'm not gonna make it, man. Hey. And when I do that, even though we know that a lot of the distortion is being created with the tissues above the vocal folds, I almost feel like it's in the front of my mouth. We know that I'm not creating the distortion there, but it feels that way because of the resonance and because of the way that the air is moving. And it's really cool to hear. Now I want to go back and listen to some of the old stuff. Maybe I'll do that in a couple videos, 4 or 5 videos from now. Listen to some of the old stuff and kind of compare and contrast. I don't think it'll be too controversial of an opinion if I point out things that are damaging, because everybody knows he heard his voice by this point. But anyways, kind of lost my train of thought, but let's keep going.
All I've got is insane. All I've got because it's in my eyes. It's the only thing that slowly stops me. I was made of all the things I have to take. Jesus, it never ends. It works its way inside. If the pain goes on, I'm not gonna make it.
I love how he darkened up the tone on it at the end. So he's obviously singing, that final chorus, da-na-na-na-na-na, ba-da-da-da-ba-ba, right? He's obviously singing that chorus, and it's very bright, it's very open, it's very forward, right? And then he screams, "I'm not gonna make it," and he doesn't say it, he says and it's dark. It's a dark tone versus bright, and it ends on that. I think that's really cool. I don't know if that was intentional. I tend to think it is because it sounds very intentional, but it really leaves the song on a note of aggression. That's really cool. I also love how listen, I'm not really into production, so if it's a sound effect or whatever, feel free to correct me. But I love how, so in the song we have this really poppy kind of trash can sounding snare, and then in the video they're actually hitting a keg and throwing a keg on the ground. I love that. The self-awareness there is awesome. Yeah, great song. Definitely much more healthy stuff from Corey Taylor happening in Duality, right? Definitely felt like I was walking around at the mall with my Nokia black and white phone playing Snake, because that's the only game that was on there. What was an app? We didn't know. I wouldn't go back to be, sometimes we all get nostalgic, but at the same time, but yeah, a lot more healthy stuff going on here. And again, this is a vocal style that is easy to approach if you have a good handle on the fundamentals. Difficult to master, easy to start if you have a handle on the fundamentals. And again, if you need help with the fundamentals, one option is to check out cardivoxacademy.com. I do give one-on-one lessons, but they are booked for a while. But still email us because we get openings, and there's a waiting list that we'd be happy to get you on. And we also do have, again, that false chord fundamentals e-course, which has been pretty helpful for a lot of people. But this was great. I think in the future I do want to go and listen to some of his other stuff that's a little bit more on the unhealthy side, and maybe we'll go even more in depth into that. But I think that's enough for now. Great song. Good job, Slipknot. I think of metal bands from that era, System of a Down will always reign supreme for me. But this was still good. Many thanks. Much love. I'm out.